Good evening, everybody. Sorry, my computer was not being cooperative. Hey, Yvette, how are you?
Hey Corey, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
It's good. I'm doing well as well. Is this session from 7 to 8 or 7 to 7:45?
So when Sarah and I scheduled these, really that last 15 minutes or so was more or less for just buffer slash Q&A time. So
Gotcha.
it just kind of depends on what we needed to accomplish.
I want to make sure because I can go over, I can talk a lot. So I just want to make sure where I'm gauging my time. So I will give you time for questions and answers at the end. So I'll make time for that.
No worries.
All right. Is this everyone that's supposed to be joining us today?
So it's just an open registration across the state, so it could be just these people with us, or we could have
Okay.
more people join us. We had quite a few registers, so we could probably give people 1 or 2 more minutes and see if anybody hops on before we get
Okay then.
started.
No problem.
All right. Well, I have terrible wait time as a teacher, so I'm gonna do the best I can. Well, first of all, let me just say good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I know that 7 o'clock on a Thursday night is not the most exciting time to take part in professional development, but we wanted to be intentional about designing these professional development sessions so that teachers could actually participate. And we all know that schedules during the day are very difficult. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here, or if you're watching this recording later. So my name is Corey McNeil, and I am the product manager for Canvas and Go Open NC for the Department of Public Instruction. So I get the absolute pleasure of working with Canvas and all of the Canvas administrators and teachers across the state. And so, out of a response from teacher feedback and administrator feedback, we wanted to offer some opportunities for some direct to teacher professional development. So, this session is in a line of series of sessions that we're doing throughout this entire school year. And we're talking about new and classic quizzes and other ways to do assessments. And I have an expert with me this evening, and I'll let her introduce herself and kind of give her background at Instructure. But feel free to utilize the chat in this session if you want to ask questions along the way. This is designed to be what you need to get out of it, so we want you to utilize that. Um, I am happy to answer and provide feedback as much as I can. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Yvette, and let you take it away.
All right, then. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yvette Davis. I am a strategic learning services contractor with Instructure. And today I am going to be going over with you guys new quizzes versus classic quizzes. I have been a contractor with Instructure since February of this year, and I have enjoyed working with this company so much. So I am excited to be here to share the differences and some of the similarities between new quizzes and classic quizzes. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And I hope you all enjoyed this evening's presentation. Okay? Awesome sauce. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with a guiding question. What are the most important features to us when it comes to quizzing platforms? As a teacher and you're in the virtual world, an online digital platform, you want to think about the important features that you would like to incorporate within a quizzing platform so that your students can have the most rigorous um, experience when they are being assessed within their assessment, within their units or their lessons. So I'm going to, there's a QR code on the screen that you're able to scan if you're able to do that. I also have a link to a Padlet that I would like to share. And I'm just going to drag this Padlet into the screen right here so you all can see it. And I'm going to drop this in the chat. Corey, where's the chat for me? I haven't used this.
I just realized I was talking to you and it was muted. Um, so usually it's when you're sharing your screen, it's like it comes up when you go to the top of your screen.
Oh, I see it.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
Yes,
I just had to go move over to the other screen. Thank you, Corey.
no worries. I know WebEx is a great tool sometimes, but sometimes it's a little cumbersome compared to some of the other products out there.
It's fancy. I like it. But there you go. There you go, everyone. You can just take the time to answer this guiding question. What are the most important features to us when it comes to quizzing platforms? I know for me personally, I like to have different interactive questions when it comes to a quizzing platform because in the state of Georgia, when I was an educator, we had to make sure that our assessments were aligned with the state assessments. We wanted to make sure they were like interactive hotspot questions, multiple selection questions, so that in classroom, the students would be able to practice those components. So once they would get to the actual state assessment, it wouldn't be foreign to them. So that was something that we really look for when we read as educators in the state of Georgia. That was something that we really look for when we came to an assessment platform.
So
Give you guys about, oh
I
yeah.
don't know if the maybe it's just my view here. I don't know that I can edit on your Padlet here.
Oh, you know, if you can, let me see. I'm sorry. Can you try it now?
Mm, I'm not seeing that. When you go to that, not the modify, go to the share. No, that's not what I'm thinking about.
Oh yeah, that's right. You should be able to do it now.
Yeah, there we go.
I give you guys about 3 more minutes, and I'll put the link back in the chat just in case.
I'll just say for me, and while we're having people look at this, is one of the things that I think is really important when it comes to giving. Um, it's about getting feedback from me,
Mhm.
both from the instructor perspective and from the learner perspective. So it's not just, did I get it right or did I get it wrong? But, what are some nuances around that? So I think that's an important feature for me when it comes to being able to have that flexibility in giving assessments.
Absolutely, that is a very important component. I know I discovered that when before I even was introduced to Canvas, I was using Google Forms, and I would use that feedback portion for it. So that was my first introduction to that component of online quizzing platform, when you're giving them the feedback, whether they got the answer correct or incorrect, and you're able to attach documents or even links to videos to be able to give them a variety of different feedback to be able to help get them to the level of mastery. So I agree with you, Corey, that it is a very important feature to include with the quizzing platform.
Mm. And I know you're sharing your screen, so sometimes it's hard to see the chat, but some of the people have said, it's ease of use because I mean, from both the student and the instructor perspective, immediate feedback, um, picking random questions from a pool so that each attempt is unique. That is true because really, when you're pulling from a pool of questions like that, it's easier to understand. Does the student understand the standard, or are they just getting lucky and answering the same questions every single time?
My apologies, it's not letting you guys type on it. A little
No
technical
worries.
error. Okay, but I'm seeing your responses. Absolutely.
That's a good point, Sarah. Being able to embed content uh,
Hmm.
to really speak
Pictures,
to different.
videos. Absolutely, because that ties into your various types of learners. I know I used to give my students multiple intelligence tests so that I can understand as a teacher how they learn best, and then the students can understand how they learn best. So when I would give them feedback, I would sometimes give them video feedback, or I would just give them recording. And some of the kids just like to just read my feedback as well. So getting an understanding of how your students learn best will also aid in the retention of the information and acceleration of them reaching mastery of the standard. So always try to take in how they learn best in account when designing or anything with the students. All right, let's go ahead and mosey on along. Okay, so this right here is the feature comparison document that Instructure developed to show the comparison features and the Canvas workflows between not classic quizzes and NewQuzzies. So this is linked. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the full chart of it. Excuse me. Try to go get that thing right there. It's not. Okay. All right, so this right here is the Canvas NewQuzzies feature comparison. So these are just some of the baselines about what are the differences and similarities we have between the NewQuiz platform and the Classic Quizzes platform. So right here, we have the feature comparisons. Classic quizzes and NewQuzzies can be found in Mastery Pathways. Course copies, Commons import, Commons export can only be found with the classic quizzes. It has not yet been featured into the NewQuzzies yet. And then these are some of the other feature comparisons that we have with the classic and NewQuzzies. Oh, you like a link to it? I can give you a link to this right now.
Are you good? I just dropped it in the chat.
Oh, you did? Okay, then great. Thank you.
No worries.
All right, and so yes, that is a comparison of the workflow between the different programs and the actual third parties that we have set up within Canvas, that you can see the different comparisons. I have another chart that's going to give you a Venn diagram showing you the other comparisons between classic quizzes and NewQuzzies, which we're about to look at right now. So here we have our Canvas quizzing platforms. So right here, we're looking at NewQuzzies. And we're going to spend the majority of our time just looking at the quizzes. We're going to go into a demo course to see how we develop a new quiz and classic quizzes so we can look at the differences and similarities between both of the platforms, just to get a visual demo of it. So right here we have the NewQuzzies. And the NewQuzzies platform, it is the newest quizzing platform that is within Canvas. It allows for interactivity. For earlier, as I said, for example, you have the hotspot type questions. You have the multiple choice type questions where you can be able to select multiple answers. You can drag and drop, which is really good for the elementary level students, pre-K to second grade, where they have to like maybe match letters, and words together, and you can just drag and match them together, and that's a really good interactive component for quizzes, and that's what makes it widely available for students, not just the elementary, middle, and high, but for that early childhood program where you have the kindergarten, first, and second grade levels that can be able to use this online quizzing platform because of the different type of interactivity questions they have built within them. There also allows for accommodations within NewQuzzies. You can also record your voice to be able to read out, maybe record in Spanish. If you're a Spanish teacher, you can be able to record yourself reading a question in Spanish and they have to type in English to translate it. So that's another part of interactivity and accommodations that you can be able to use within NewQuzzies. And then it's just the main quizzing platform that we have within Canvas. Classic quizzes, you have to use the rich content editor to be able to create your quiz questions. Although within NewQuzzies, there is an interactive item bank that you can be able to utilize to be able to produce your quiz questions. In classic quizzes, you're able to download data, which is very good, and the data comes up very quickly after you're done computing your scores within the Canvas classic quizzes. The data is already downloadable for you immediately. And then it's like the older platform that people are mainly used to that have been current users of Canvas. All right, so here's our Venn diagram comparison of classic quizzes and NewQuzzies and the things that we see and there are similarities between the two. So let's first look at classic quizzes. Look at the old school quizzes. Survey and practice assessments are found within classic quizzes. You can align the outcomes to the question banks. So whatever outcomes you have, they will be automatically aligned to the question banks that you have produced within Canvas classic quizzes. You can bookmark question banks. So there are particular question banks that you use for your subject area, your grade level. You can be able to bookmark them to quickly go back to them and reuse them for different types of assessments, formative or summative assessments. And you can export your quiz content from other quizzes into the classic quizzes by using the rich content editor. And you can grade one question at a time using Speed Grader within classic quizzes. Now, let's take a look at our NewQuzzies and the features that NewQuzzies holds. It's an interactive question types. As I was saying earlier, my favorite reason for using NewQuzzies are the different types of interactive question types that you're allowed to utilize with your students to bring a different type of rigorous to the assessment environment for you and your students. It also aligns the outcome of individual questions. So instead of just allowing the outcomes of question banks, they allow the outcomes of individual questions within NewQuzzies. You can also shuffle the answers and quiz questions. So that's really helpful, especially if you have an environment where students do not have adequate space and they're in a blended learning environment and they may be testing. I know I appreciated quiz platforms that allowed me to be able to shuffle the questions and answers when the students were taking the assessments around each other at the same time. Just in case you may have some accidental wandering eyes, the shuffling of the question and answers was very helpful so that that wouldn't be an issue if somebody looking at somebody else's screen to check the answers. The quizzes and answers were always shuffled around amongst the students taking the assessment. And then you can also shuffle the questions in a global aspect as well. So across the board, not just within the course, the assessment that you created, but across the board, you can be able to shuffle the questions. And you can customize a point value per question. So you can have 1 to 1.5 or 2 or 5 points, depending on how you want to give the point value for that question. And it also depends on how many parts of that question you want to give that determines the point value of that question. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the similarities that have. So you're able to first import question banks. You can import question banks into and do this. You're able to regrade. That is a very, very important feature. It does not show what they know. Because over time, we know as educators, students are going to excel and they're going to learn more information that's going to strengthen their knowledge and to raise their score even higher. So we want to be able to give them an opportunity to be able to retest so we can see how much more they have gained as far as knowledge for the assessment. You can also reorder the questions and then try on multiple attempts. With multiple attempts and regrading, you can be able to give students multiple attempts so that they may have a bad day, a bad testing day. Having the ability to have multiple attempts, maybe limited the number of attempts, so that you can be able to check in between those attempts to see how you can be able to increase their score between each of these attempts they may have. So instead of having their score decline after each one of these attempts, you want to see a steady increase towards mastery. You can also set a time limit for both of them, and you can also hide the time so that students will not be able to see the time countdown. I know that was something that I was very much a fan of, hiding the time so that the students can see it, because it will be a distractor and sometimes set the anxiety in because they will see the countdown right next to them, and that would distract them from focusing on taking the assessment. You can moderate the quiz per student. You can assign the quiz to individual students. So if you create a quiz, it doesn't have to always go out to all of the students. These quizzes can go out to individual students or to small groups that you create. It can be individualized like that. And you can also, like we said earlier, shuffle answers globally. Or you can shuffle questions with NewQuzzies, but you can shuffle answers globally between classic quizzes and NewQuzzies. All right.
So we do have a question. When students retake a quiz on the new quiz platform, why is it that their previous answers still appear on the quiz?
Because we want to show growth. So we take taking a show where they previously came from, so that it's kind of tracking, showing their improvement or where they want to master that assessment or master that standard for that assessment. So it's kind of, it's a way for showing them, like, this is what I made the first attempt, this is what I made the second attempt. So in between each of those attempts, the teacher is able to go in conference with the students. And that's what I would use when I would give them 3 attempts for an assessment before they take the summative assessment. I would let them know, if you did not master it the first time, we're going to have a conference, we're going to meet, and we're going to see where your mistakes were at so we can be able to get a higher score the next time. And then I was able to check and see if there were any errors that they were making by having a conference in between each one of those. So after probably the second time they retake it, usually about like 95% that third time, students will master the assessment, because I was catching in between those multiple attempts where they were lacking at to be able to master that standard. Did I answer your question? All right. Any more questions? I wish I could chat more often. Sorry.
No worries. That's what I'm here for.
Thank you, Corey. I appreciate I
Got you.
appreciate that. I see a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Corey. Okay. All right. So now let's look at the workflows. Within the workflows, we're talking about the different types of settings you have in third-party protocoling tools that are working and not working within quizzes, NewQuzzies and classic quizzes. So for now, we have the commons, where the NewQuzzies will only work within an institution. So you have an institution, so NewQuzzies will be able to work beautifully within your institution for NewQuzzies. You can also duplicate NewQuzzies. So instead of creating new quiz, recreating a quiz, you can take that quiz and duplicate it, and then you can modify some small things within that quiz to differentiate it or make a new type of quiz without reinventing the quiz all over again. Most third-party proctoring tools do not yet work with NewQuzzies. And then our blueprinting will only work on first sync and will change by transition. I have to get some more information about blueprinting. That's not my strongest area just yet. But if you do have any questions about blueprinting, I can be able to ask Sarah to be able to give you more accurate information to answer blueprinting. Also, they are only supported in teacher assistant, and student course roles to be able to create and work with NewQuzzies. And classic quizzes can migrate to NewQuzzies, but not yet the banks. So the item banks cannot migrate from classic quizzes over to NewQuzzies. And that's something that they know about, and I think they are in the works of working on being able to take those classic quizzes banks to migrate them over from classic quizzes to NewQuzzies. All right. All right, now let's check out the features, and then we're going to jump in in a little bit to look at how to create our classic quizzes and new quizzes. All right. And then I'm going to give you a document that's going to show you how to determine for your institution whether you're going to use classic quizzes or new quizzes. And we'll go through that together to help determine which is best for you and your students. So let's take a look at the features. With the features, you have the ability, with the ability to print new quizzes. And that's something you're not able to do with the classic quizzes. With the new quizzes, if there's a reason why you're in a blended learning environment and the internet isn't working, you're not able to log in and take the quizzes, you can always, what I would always do was print a copy of the quiz. So if it's a day the copiers are working and they're not down in the teacher workroom, if the computer wasn't working because of weather or connection issues, I can go downstairs and make paper copies just in case the internet goes out. So that's a really good feature that NewQuzzies has. So it's like, hey, we know that things happen. So just in case the internet isn't working, you can go ahead and have a free time down there at the copier room and make copies of the printed quiz that you created from NewQuzzies. That's a really good feature they have within there. And you cannot bulk download submission files for NewQuzzies. So there's no bulk downloading. It had to be like individual downloading of the quizzes. So there's no like bulking of having a whole batch download of your quizzes. You have to individually download those quizzes. And you cannot create surveys within NewQuzzies. In classic quizzes, you were able to create surveys, but within NewQuzzies, you're not able to create survey type questions within there. And it will not show up on instructors' to-do list to grade new quizzes. That was a feature that will happen in classic quizzes. But when you have a to-do list, grading your quizzes will not show up within that to-do list. The item banks in NewQuzzies can easily be shared by teachers or institutions, which is a really good thing. You can share the item banks within NewQuzzies. And then the Canvas Rich Content Editor is not yet within NewQuzzies. So that's the only way you can be able to create your quiz questions within classic quizzes is by using the rich content editor. And some teachers actually like having that freedom to be able to create their quiz questions and bring in different features using the rich content editor. But we do not have that feature just yet within NewQuzzies. So you see the word yet, that means it's coming. So you can also, there's no HTML editor or no LTI tools, no recording media, and no effects for math or formulas as well. So that's a slight downfall for a lot of people, but those features are not here yet. They're coming. So once they come, NewQuzzies will be the new hotspot because they'll have all of those wonderful features they had before, plus the ability to be able to create your questions using the rich content editor, record a media, video, recording your voice, and using the HTML editor and LTI tools to integrate within your questions. All right, so now let's look at the item or question types. Now, the item or question types that you will go through, like I was saying, the hotspot, categorization, ordering, those are the type of questions that you can definitely use for the elementary level, especially with kindergarten, letter recognition, letter sound recognition. You can be able to record your voice using the classic quizzes, though. You can be able to record your voice and then using a rich content editor in classic quizzes, and then you can have them categorize all of the shapes. You can say, take all the blue shapes and put them in this corner, take all the green shapes and put them over here. Or you can say, take all of the uppercase letters and put them in this category, or order the shapes from smallest to largest, or things like that. You can be able to voice your directions and type them out and then have those type of questions within classic quizzes so that students can be able to have that interactivity, because those are the type of questions they will experience on a lot of the state standardized tests. So having that within this course of the school year, they can be able to practice so that when they do come to testing time, especially at their young age, it will not be foreign to them. They'll know exactly what to do. Now, the different settings. NewQuzzies allow us to set a waiting period between attempts. So that's a really good feature, as well as shuffling of questions. Now, when I used to use another quizzing platform back in the day, it was called, I believe, Illuminate. It would not allow a waiting period in between attempts. So I would have to, at first, when I first started, I would give all the kids the codes for each of the attempts for that standard quiz. So the kids would not pass it if I wasn't looking or monitoring them. They would go take the next two or three, and I'd be like, "How'd you take three of them within 20 minutes? Like, what happened?" Because I didn't have a waiting period that was automatically set within Canvas. I didn't have that when I was using the other quizzing platform feature. So my students were going through taking the test, and I had to go through and reset them because I'm like, "Hey, you have to take it. If you don't pass it, that's when I come in and we have a conversation together. And then we work on it and see where you're making your mistakes at, and then you try again." So that was, I had to actually go in there and self put my waiting periods in there with them. But with Canvas and NewQuzzies, it will allow you to set a waiting period in between. So that can be adjusted to your needs. So whenever you're available after the students take the test, you can be able to give them a waiting period to be able to work with you, and then go be able to go back and take the next test. So they won't have the ability to jump ahead. They'll have to wait until the system allows them to take that next attempt and that third attempt. Okay, so grading and moderation. So we have the NewQuzzies and partial points. So with the NewQuzzies, they're adding extra time to individual students. And then they also have partial points. So within partial points, NewQuzzies can only fill in the blank and multiple answers. Multiple choice, fill in the blank and matching or allow multiple partial points. So partial points, for example, if you give a question that has a multiple choice, like say for answer, multiple choice, multiple answer, fill in the blank. And if you get only a certain portion of them out of the amount that's supposed to be correct, then you'll be able to get partial point credit for that. So you won't get all, it won't be counted all incorrect. You will only get the amount of points that you earn based on which ones you selected that were correct. Like multiple choice question where you have multiple answers and things like that, or filling in the blank, you may have one word or half of the word correct, or some of the words within the blank to be filled out correctly. That's where you would get the partial points grade system within there. Then we have our speed grader. Speed grader grade one question at a time only in the classic quizzes. So within speed grader and classic quizzes, you're grading your questions one question at a time for each of the students. So you're doing one question, you go through all the students, and then you go to the next question, grade through all for the students, just like that within speed grader. And learning mastery gradebook, the outcomes will only work right now with the classic quizzes. That's just for right now. It will only work with the classic quizzes. All right, so as for the reports in classic quizzes, the reports in classic quizzes are instant. That's why we said earlier, you get a instant downloadable report so that you can use that data to be able to form groups or wherever you may need to use the data for. Now in NewQuzzies, it takes a while for it to generate. 24, I think up to like 40 hours to be able to generate the reports from a quiz. So it takes a couple of hours or a day and a half to be able to get your report from your quizzes. And then there's no CSV download of NewQuzzies. And that's something that I absolutely love as an educator. When I would get my reports, I needed them in a CSV file because then I can be able to personalize that report data for my needs and for my students' needs by color coding them, grouping them. And the color code will let me see this overall view shot of how my students performed on the assessment. So that would be helpful for me, but NewQuzzies doesn't have that CSV download. So hopefully they'll come back and say yet, so that it will be a feature that will be coming very soon for us new quiz users. All right, and now things to note. Here's a few things to note before we go into the visual demonstration of NewQuzzies and classic quizzes. Items that are not in NewQuzzies by transition, according to the document, does not mean they will never be in the NewQuzzies. It's not something that will be in by the transition time. Okay, so this is the resource I was talking about. I'm going to we'll copy it right here and then drop this in the chat for you all to view. And this is how you help determine the quizzing platform that best fits your institution. So before after I go through, and once you click on that link I'll drop in the chat, it's going to prompt you to make a copy of it. So once you make a copy of it, you're going to see a slide deck showing the questions of how to determine which quizzing platform worked best for you in your classroom or at your school or in your institution overall. And then once you complete answering those, I believe it's 11 questions. Let me double check before I tell you all. 13 questions. Once you answer all 13 of those questions, it will tell you at the very bottom whether you are needing to use new quizzes or classic quizzes. Was it with this at slide deck? When students retake a quiz. Oh, that was earlier. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to mention, I just put this in the chat, but know that this overall, this concept has been a long process in concept, but not necessarily in production. So um, there are feature sets that are still being developed, as that I have been told, anyways.
Mm-hmm. A lot of different features that's still being developed within Canvas quizzes and well, Canvas quizzes, period. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch and show my Canvas course. And everyone was able to view that slide deck, correct? Which quizzing platform? And if you want to go ahead and take the time right now so I can pull up, while I pull up the demo course, to go through and see which of the questions will guide you to your classic quizzes or your new quizzes for what you need to use for your classroom. And just let me know in the chat which one did your final answer come out to, classic quizzes or new quizzes. And I'll go ahead and get the quiz demo course pulled up. Also, a question. So on new quizzes, with a matching question, if a student misses one piece, then it will count the entire thing wrong. Oh no, it will not count the entire thing wrong. If with that type of question, if you select the correct answers with a, you said with a matching question, if they match the correct ones, then they'll give them those partial points for the ones they matched correctly. If they did not get the ones that you had matched for them to be correct, then they will take off those points that they did not get matched correctly. Michelle. Oh, they don't receive partial credit for you all, Corey?
Not that I'm aware of. Um,
Are you using new classic or new quizzes?
uh, NewQuzzies is what I'm familiar with.
Okay, so I thought they were able to get partial points if they're making, because when you're able to select the correct answers, it won't count the entire question wrong. It only count what they did not get correct from those series of selectable answers. But I'll double check with Sarah just to be sure. But that's what I remember. But I would double check on that, Michelle and Corey, for you all.
Sure, I appreciate it.
No problem. Let me make a note second. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the All right, so here is a demo course. So you all are familiar with creating quizzes, correct? Have you worked with creating classic quizzes, or you mainly just work on creating new quizzes? Both? Okay. So is there anything you need for me to demo since you all are familiar with creating classic quizzes? I wasn't sure if you were familiar with creating these classic quizzes or new quizzes. You prefer classic, Michelle?
I think one of the things that might be beneficial is, obviously as we're going through this transition, is maybe the process that I would need to go through to convert a classic quiz to a new quiz.
Converting a classic quiz to a new quiz. Okay. Turn this light off here because it is. Okay. I'm sorry, that light was burning me up and I did not think I was going to be sweating like that. I'm so sorry. All right, so we're going to convert classic quizzes to new quizzes. So we're going to go into our, not the global navigation, but the course navigation, and we're going to go down to quizzes. And then we're going to find a quiz that we want to use. I'm just going to pick this first one right here. And then we're going to go down here to see the word migrate. Everyone sees that? I'm going to click on migrate. All right, and then you can see the migration of the quiz right here. Let's see. Try it again. Oh, here it is right here. And by default, migrated quizzes are automatically unpublished. So you can still see that it's thinking right here, but this is the migrated quiz that we just attempted. And you can see it's not published yet. Did that answer your question, Corey?
Yeah, and I was just going to say,
Okay.
and just know that they will show up in assignments at in that point as well. And
Yes,
assignments
it
is
will.
actually where you'll go to make adjustments to questions, question types, and really edit that quiz the way you would have in a classic quiz. Nicholas, I do know that it has to be enabled within your instance to start that new quizzes. But if you have the ability to create a new quiz, I would think you would have the ability
Mm-hmm.
to convert. Yes, enabled by your Canvas administrator in your district. Um,
Yes.
that might be a question for them to see if there's something they need to enable for you to be able to convert a quiz. And that's something I would recommend. That we're still very early in this transition timeline, but we want. I want one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is to give you guys a heads up and opportunities to play around with the new feature sets that could become available, and to ask questions and give feedback to Canvas. Um, So yeah, if you're not seeing those, I would reach out to the Canvas administrator for your district or your school.
And that, you're correct, Corey. That's exactly what it means. If you cannot view the migrate option, and it has to be enabled by your institution. So, like you said, contact your Canvas admin, and they should be able to do that for you. And as Corey was saying earlier, if you go down to assignments, once you migrate that quiz, remember it's going to be unpublished. So anything that's unpublished is going to be down at the very bottom of the screen. And then it makes a new heading titled Migrated Quizzes. So here's the migrated quiz that we just completed. And then, like he said, you can go ahead and make your edits within there. Yep. Save and then build. I see questions.
Will teachers lose their quizzes that are not migrated? Crystal, I know that the roadmap, and then I'm gonna show this roadmap at the end, is that the data will be retained for a certain amount of timeline, um, but they will eventually need to be converted to NewQuzzies at some point.
Oh, you can send feedback to Canvas by going into the Commons.
Mm-hmm. There's a
So you go
whole
to
discussion
yes.
board.
Hmm. You can go to Canvas Canvas Community, or you can go to your resources, and there's numbers that you can be able to reach out to and get support for Canvas. They're really good about answering the support through there as well. And you can be able to go to the Canvas community and give feedback that way as well. They take all kinds of feedback for the different project. They have everything organized as well, so you can find by the category or by which topic you're looking for and be able to give feedback.
Absolutely.
And this is the when you go into the Canvas community, the ideas and conversations. I know I'll be able to get feedback from this point right here as well.
And I would highly recommend doing a search for a thread that may already exist.
Mm-hmm.
They leverage like a kudos and upvoting situation.
Mm-hmm.
So you have more power in your persuasion if you're able to, maybe piggyback on another teacher or another Canvas user who's had the same thoughts or ideas or desires, to upvote their idea rather than starting a whole new discussion thread yourself.
Mm-hmm. Like right here, you see some people upvoted them and added comments to them as well. And I just select the category for new quiz users. Oh yes, they're very responsive about upgrades and everything. I agree, Nicholas.
As a former chemistry teacher myself, I can totally relate to what you're talking about, having to get those formulas in there. Absolutely.
All right, are there any more questions or anything else I can demonstrate for you all? How about you, Corey? Is there anything else I can be able to demonstrate for you all?
I think, I think that's the biggest things, and just knowing that here again, this was I just wanted to give information to all of you guys, because like I said, those changes are coming. They're coming down the road, and I'm going to share this. I did put this link in the chat previously, but I wanted to repost it because I wanted to show you where I was going to be sharing my screen from. Um, but this is that. Um, Come on. There you go. This is that timeline that they have laid out right now. And they're rolling it out obviously in phases. But I think this, for someone who is a very visual person like myself, having this slide really shows me kind of where we are. So obviously, we're coming to the end of 2021, um, and you can kind of see where the intended transition is going and some of those deadlines, and know that but I would say that none of those are set in stone by any means. Um, subject to change. Last updated October 1st, 2021. I know the pandemic, like many things, has had an impact on this particular timeline. Um, but just wanted to, like I said, share that so you can kind of see where the intentions are moving forward. So I would hope, and I think that many people would agree that as we move further through this progression, some of those feature sets that may not exist in classic quizzes are able to be adapted and transformed over to NewQuzzies. But there are some cool feature sets that exist in NewQuzzies already that don't exist in classic quizzes. Um, but with the time that we have left, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys and say, if you have questions that we can answer that may necessarily not be about quizzes, or if you want 10 minutes back into your evening, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But I just wanted to let you know and thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Yvette, for being here and demonstrating some of the great features and the kind of the timeline around transitioning to NewQuzzies.
Absolutely. I just put a link to an evaluation form for me. So if you all can take the time to fill that out. My name is Yvette Davis. You can see on the screen it's Ebette Davis. And you can just let instructor know how well I did on the presentation for you all. I would greatly appreciate that.